Your Excellency, President Uhuru, Kenyatta. Your Excellency, Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations. Your Excellency, Abdullah Shahid, President of the 76th Section of General Assembly. Your Excellency, Colin Vixen Calabil, President of the Economic and Social Council. Distinguished heads of state and government, ministers, excellencies, NGO, foundations, movements, activists, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor and a privilege for me to have been elected on behalf of the Portuguese people and Portuguese state and government, President of the 2022 United Nations Conference to support the implementation of Sustainable Development Goal 14, together with His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta. Dear friends, welcome to Portugal. This conference comes at the right place, at the right time, with the right approach, and with the right Secretary General of the United Nations. Yes, it is indeed an honor and a pleasure to have His Excellency Antonio Guterres promoting this important meeting as UN Secretary General, a man of principles, a man of convictions, a promoter of peace, social justice, and sustainable development. The right place, Lisbon, Portugal. Portugal is what it is because of the oceans. Portugal, a platform between oceans, continents, cultures, civilizations. In the past, in the present, in the future. Sometimes succeeding, others failing, but always present and building bridges as this fruitful co-organization with Kenya, another bridge builder, one from the north, the other from the south. The right time, in spite of 2 years of forced postponement, of a pandemic, of a war, of dramatic economic and social crisis, and even together with the G7 meeting and the NATO summit. Regime, institutional powers, politicians go, the oceans stay. They are millions and millions of years old, long before humanity. They will be there for another millions and millions of years, provided we take care and stop killing them. Right time too, because oceans are central in geopolitical balance of power, healthcare, economic resources, energy, mobility, migrations, scientific and technological development, climate change. All of these is present either in the context or in the outcome of pandemic, of war, and of crisis. Right time also, because we must recover too much time we have lost and give hope a chance. Once again, before it is too late. The right approach, because life is too often dispute, fight, dissent, unilateralism, war, for various reasons. Goals, ambitions, frustrations, values, needs, perceptions. But life is also and must be convergence, dialogue, tolerance, multilateralism, international institutions, global cooperation in common priorities. The ocean, its sustainable development, as long-term climate action are now the best examples of our other approach. So vital for so many states and so many people all around the world, forgotten or minimized by the mediatic leading narrative of the so-called first world, the wealthiest and privileged one, and vital for those younger generations that will in any case lead the future, and that spoke in a youth and innovation forum yesterday, expecting their voices to be heard during this conference. Excellencies, the right time, the right place, the right approach. The right place is in Portugal. The right time when the urgency of the pandemic or the war cannot be the excuse for forgetting the long-lasting structural challenges and their effect on our short-term, intense, unidimensional day-by-day living. The right approach, having to deal with avoidable and unavoidable dissents and wars, always hoping to overcome them by peace, but believing in and fighting for a more cooperative world. As the agreements achieved in these last years and mostly in these last months showed, as the talks preparing the outcome of this conference showed, this must be the conference of deconfinement and ambition. At the right place, the right time, the right approach. Here we are today. Be welcome, feel at home. Thank you very much.
I thank His Excellency President Rebelo de Sousa for his statement, and now allow me to deliver some introductory remarks as co-president of this conference. Your Excellency, President Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa, President of the Republic of Portugal, and our gracious host, Your Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, Your Excellency Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, Your Excellency Abdallah Sharif, President of the General Assembly, Your Excellency Colin Kepael, President of the Economic Social Council, Your Excellency Liu Zhengmin, Secretary General of the Conference, Your Excellency Ambassador Peter Thomas, United Nations Secretary General's Special Envoy for Oceans, Honorable Ministers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, let me say that it gives me great pleasure to join the President of Portugal to welcome you to the second UN Oceans Conference, which Kenya is honored to co-host with Portugal. I want to thank His Excellency President Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa and the government of Portugal for the excellent preparations to host us here in Lisbon. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as you all know, this conference was scheduled to be held in 2020, but had to be postponed because of the COVID-19 pandemic. I want to thank all of you for your patience and also for joining us today in Lisbon. The first UN Oceans Conference, which was hosted by Sweden and Fiji in 2017, raised an alarm on the urgent need to scale up action on the SDG 14 to conserve and sustainably use oceans, seas, and marine resources for sustainable development. It is our expectation, therefore, that this conference will shift gear from proposals to action. Action that is driven by science, technology, and innovation. We expect to hear about solutions, examples of nature-based solutions. We expect to understand the linkages between oceans, climate change, and land-based action, such as pollution. And of great interest to most of us, ladies and gentlemen, is that we expect to leave Lisbon with a clear understanding of financing options and pathways. We note with concern that the SDG 14 is the most underfunded of all the 17 SDGs. So, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the ocean is the most underappreciated resource on our planet. Most of us do not comprehend just how central the ocean is to human existence. And for this, let me just cite a few examples which underscore why we are in this meeting today. Our oceans cover 70% of the global surface, and 3 billion people depend on marine and coastal biodiversity. The ocean is home to about 80% of all life in the world, and it supplies nearly half of the oxygen we breathe, and 90% of the world's goods are traded across oceans, and this list goes on and on. But human action has put ocean systems under immense stress. We dump more than 8 million tons of plastics into the oceans each year, sickening and contaminating at least 700 species of marine life. We're also threatening the stability of fish populations through illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing, and are altering and destroying marine ecosystems through dumping of toxic wastes into the waters. Poor management of the ocean has reduced the ocean's natural ability to restore itself. And I find it quite surprising that we would put such a critical resource at risk. But yet, if we manage the ocean more sustainably, it could produce as much as 6 times more food, generate 40 times more renewable energy than it currently does, and help lift millions of people across the globe out of poverty and increase economic as well as environmental resilience. Ladies and gentlemen, in the ocean, therefore, lies great risk as well as great opportunity. The burden of choice lies with each and every one of us. Over the last decade, we have accumulated sufficient knowledge of all the risks and opportunities and deepened our understanding of actions that we should take. The 2018 Sustainable Blue Economy Conference, which Kenya hosted together with Canada and Japan, highlighted untapped opportunities in enhancing marine technology and innovation, and the strengthening science and research to generate evidence-based policies. The conference also underscored the urgent need to mobilize financing from both public and private sources. The high-level panel for a sustainable ocean economy, where I serve as a member, has also developed a path groundbreaking set of ocean transformations where environmental protection and conservation, sustainable economic production, and equitable prosperity go hand in hand. The high-level panel has commissioned a compendium of evidence-based reports, including reports on addressing plastic pollution, financing the ocean economy, and making the benefits from the ocean economy equitable. So, ladies and gentlemen, our actions are not commensurate with the threat that faces the oceans. We urgently need to build an ocean-based economy where effective protection, sustainable production, and equitable prosperity go hand in hand. These actions must be taken collectively because the ocean is a global common good. 2/3 of our global waters lie in areas beyond national jurisdiction of economic zones. Action or lack of action in one sea will have a positive or negative effect on other seas. Success in managing our global aquatic resource therefore requires and hinges critically on all of us working together. We need, ladies and gentlemen, to build political momentum towards ocean climate action as we head for the 27th session of the UN Climate Conference in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt in November of this year. We can no longer continue to make commitments that we cannot honor. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude, let me stress the importance of engaging all stakeholders. The youth, for example, must be our torchbearers on ocean action, and they need a front row seat in this discussion. The inspiring ocean-based actions that the youth presented yesterday demonstrate that they indeed are and can be a part of the solution. So as I conclude, I take this opportunity to wish all of us fruitful deliberations, and in the years to come, I would like us to look back on Lisbon as the place where we bent the arch of history and boldly chose to sustainably produce and protect our oceans. I thank you. Thank you very much. I would now like to invite His Excellency Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, to make a statement.
Excellencies, distinguished delegates, dear friends, all protocol observed. Allow me, in my own city and in my own country, to say a few introductory words in my own language.
It is with particular pleasure and undisguised satisfaction that I return to Parque das Nações in Lisbon for an event of the utmost importance on the oceans. I bid all those in attendance a warm welcome to the 2022 UN Ocean Conference. I would like to thank the governments of Portugal and Kenya, two countries with for their dedication, for their commitment, for all the resources made available in preparing the conference. I share a special affinity for the ocean with my fellow citizens. The poet Fernando Pessoa left us a message, and I paraphrase, God wanted the land to be one. What the sea unite, no longer tear asunder. I hope, therefore, that this conference will represent a moment of unity and coming together of all member states on maritime matters and on the protection and preservation of our oceans.
When we see the Earth from space, we truly appreciate that we live on a blue planet. The ocean connects us all. Sadly, we have taken the ocean for granted, and today we face what I would call an ocean emergency. We must turn the tide. Global heating is pushing ocean temperatures to record levels, creating fiercer and more frequent storms. Sea levels are rising. Low-lying island nations face inundation, as do many major coastal cities in the world. The climate crisis is also making the ocean more acidic, which is disrupting the marine food chain. Ever more coral reefs are bleaching and dying. Coastal ecosystems such as mangroves, seagrasses and wetlands are being degraded. Pollution from land is creating vast coastal dead zones. Nearly 80% of wastewater is discharged into the sea without treatment. And some 8 million tons of plastic waste enter the oceans every year. Without drastic action, this plastic could overweight all the fish in the oceans by 2050. Plastic waste is not found in the most remote areas and is now found in the most remote areas and deepest ocean trenches. It kills marine life, and it is doing major harm to communities that depend on fishing and tourism. One mass of plastic in the Pacific is bigger than France. Unsustainable fishing practices are also rampant. Overfishing is crippling fish stocks. So, Excellencies, we cannot have a healthy planet without a healthy ocean. Our failure to care for the ocean will have ripple effects across the entire 2030 agenda. The ocean produces more than half of the oxygen we breathe. It is the main source of sustenance for more than 1 billion people. And industries relating to the ocean employ some 40 million people, and a healthy and productive ocean is vital to our shared future. 5 years ago, at the last United Nations Ocean Conference, we issued a call for action to reverse the decline in ocean health and to restore the productivity, resilience, and ecological integrity. And since then, many communities have come together to protect the marine resources they depend on. International partnerships have been working to create marine protected areas for the recovery of fisheries and biodiversity. And where sound management has been undertaken, fisheries have rebounded. The legal framework for ocean is well established in the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, which celebrates the 40th anniversary of its adoption this year. And I'm pleased to say that there has been significant progress on legally binding instruments on the conservation and sustainable use of marine biological diversity of areas beyond national jurisdiction. A new treaty is being negotiated to address the global plastic crisis that is choking our oceans. And just a week ago, we saw multilateralism in action with the World Trade Organization agreement on ending harmful fishery subsidies. It is also now well understood that by protecting and restoring the ocean, we are acting to address the climate crisis. Following COP26, the ocean's role in addressing climate change is now integrated in the work of the UNFCCC, the organization that, as you know, is extremely relevant in relation to fighting climate change. organizing the different conference of states parties that have been taking very important decisions, starting by the Paris Agreement. And we have also seen advances in ocean science and its ability to inform policy. And we have seen science and traditional knowledge combined for improved ocean management. All these efforts stand to be improved and scaled up during the United Nations Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development, launched last year. Excellencies, dear friends, all this is true, but let's have no illusions. Much more needs to be done by all of us together. And today, I would like to leave 4 recommendations. First, I urge all stakeholders to invest sustainable ocean economies for food, renewable energy and livelihoods. And that entails new levels of long-term funding. Sustainable Development Goal 14 receives the least of any of the SDGs. Sustainable ocean management could help the ocean produce as much as 6 times more food and generate 40 times more renewable energy than it currently does. We need sustainable business models for ocean economies to operate in harmony with the marine environment and to guarantee a sustainable seafood industry. Second, the ocean must become a model on how we can manage the global commons for our greater good. That means preventing and reducing marine pollution of all kinds, both from land and sea-based sources. And it means scaling up effective area-based conservation measures and integrated coastal zone management. Third, we must protect the oceans and the people whose lives and livelihoods depend on them from the impact of climate change. All new coastal infrastructure, investments from cities and villages to port installations should be climate resilient. The shipping sector should commit to net zero emissions by 2050 and present credible plans to implement those commitments. And we should invest more in restoring and conserving coastal ecosystems such as mangroves, wetlands and coral reefs. These are instrumental in capturing carbon and enhancing people's resilience and livelihoods. Finally, I invite all to join the initiative I recently launched to achieve the goal of full early warning system coverage in the next 5 years. We will target efforts to reach coastal communities and those whose livelihoods depend on early warning at sea. Fourth, we need more science and innovation to propel us into a new chapter of global ocean action. I invite all to join the goal of mapping 80% of the seabed by 2030. And I encourage the private sector to join partnerships that support ocean research and sustainable management. And I urge governments to raise their level of ambition for the recovery of ocean health. I commend those that have registered voluntary commitments, and each one matters. And I hope to see more pledges on ocean action this week and beyond. Excellencies, I began with a Portuguese quote. In honor of our other co-hosts, let me conclude trying to say what is a very wise Swahili proverb, which teaches us, bahari itatufikisha popote. The ocean leads us anywhere. It can help open new horizons and lead us to a more just and sustainable future for all. Together, let us do our part to make a difference for the ocean and for ourselves. Thank you.
I thank the Secretary General of the United Nations for his statement, and I now invite His Excellency Abdallah Shahid, President of the 76th session of the General Assembly, to make his statement.
Your Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta, President of Kenya, Your Excellency Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa, President of Portugal, heads of states and government, Your Excellency Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, Your Excellency Colin Wixon Calapille, President of Economic and Social Council, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. I wish to commend our co-hosts, Portugal and Kenya, for their unwavering commitment to the ocean protection and conservation, and express my gratitude for the opportunity to join you. President Kenyatta, it is heartening to see your leadership on all aspects of environment issues. President de Sousa, thank you for your hospitality, your leadership, and your generous welcome to this beautiful country. As we meet here for the Ocean Conference, and as the waves of gratitude from around the world are cascading on the coast of Portugal, paying tribute, expressing gratitude to a great son of this magnificent nation, a true champion of multilateralism, a staunch advocate for humanity, and a standard bearer of stronger and more ambitious climate action, and a true protector of the ocean, my dear friend and our dearest Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, we say thank you. I also acknowledge the outstanding work of the Special Envoy of the Secretary General for the Oceans and the 71st President of the General Assembly, His Excellency Peter Thomson. I also thank the City of Lisbon for playing host to the Ocean Conference. It gives me immense pleasure to be here in this beautiful city. My dear friends, I'm a Maldivian. Whether I'm here as the President of the General Assembly or not, the ocean is in my blood. It runs through my life's narrative from childhood to parenthood, from my career in the Foreign Service to my parliamentary experience and to what I represent today. I am from a large ocean state. I am a child of the ocean. It is an inescapable truth and reality for me as a person, as a Maldivian, that the ocean is an essential part of life on this planet. I know these words ring true for many of you here today, for the small islanders, for the coastal residents, for the workers dependent on tourism and coral reefs, for the fisher persons, and for all those, however far they are from the ocean, we turn to the ocean for livelihood, for reprieve, and for enjoyment. Indeed, beyond those who look to the blue horizon each day, the entirety of humanity relies upon the ocean for half of the oxygen we intake. This is why we are here this week, to stand for a resource that has carried us, figuratively and literally, through our entire existence. My friends, the ocean connects us all. It connects humanity, connects our planet. There is no context where we live on this planet without it. This Ocean Conference is an opportunity for us to take concrete, demonstrable action to underscore our commitment to save the ocean, to protect it against the threats, both human-driven and otherwise, that would take it away from us. And in this regard, on Friday, we will adopt a declaration that will give direction and set the tone for our future work. I was pleased to reappoint the permanent representative of Grenada, Her Excellency Keisha Megura, and permanent representative of Denmark, His Excellency Martin Herman, for this task. And I commend them and the experts, Ms. Nerissa Williams and Ms. Mira Bergman, for delivering, and thank all member states for their outstanding commitment. My dear friends, the 2022 UN conference comes at a critical and timely opportunity. On the one hand, the ocean faces a myriad of threats, from climate change to plastic pollution, from overfishing to acidification. The impetus to act is clear and resounding. On the other hand, we have a momentum, and the wind, or in this case, the current, is on our back. The 40th anniversary of the United Nations Convention on Law of the Sea has reiterated our shared responsibility for the ocean. Recent efforts, such as the landmark agreement on ending plastic pollution and the new World Trade Organization deal on fisheries subsidies, give cause for hope. And there is optimism towards an international legally binding instrument on the conservation and sustainable use of marine biological diversity of areas beyond national jurisdiction. Solid partnerships across all stakeholders are being established and strengthened, as I witnessed in Palau earlier this year at the Our Ocean Conference. We have a strong foundation to build upon. Here in Portugal, the Ocean Conference can set the tone for what needs to be done. We can help to identify and define key areas of science-driven ocean action and to outline policies to be implemented by governments to deliver on change. We can highlight the contributions of female scientists to the study and protection of the ocean and commit to bring a stronger gender perspective to our work. I met yesterday with a group of women leading on this field, and I was impressed and inspired by their work. Women scientists represent, on an average, 38% of researchers in ocean science. While this is 10% higher than science in general, still it is not enough. We can also harness the energy, the passion, and the commitment of young people in our work. We need your ideas and your creativity now more than ever. The Ocean Conference can also strengthen the links between our efforts here and those on climate change, biodiversity, land degradation, and drought. What is happening in each of these areas has a direct impact on the ocean and vice versa. The excessive growth of sargassum, which I had opportunity to see firsthand during my recent visit to Dominican Republic, is such an example. Global warming, rising water temperatures, and pollutants favor the excessive growth of sargassum, and this is in turn affecting marine ecosystems, flood beaches, and threatens the economic recovery of countries that rely heavily on tourism. This complex problem, as well as the many other challenges faced by the oceans, call for the holistic approach on that note. And I commend the organizers for their choice of the theme and the focus on science and innovation. Human ingenuity has delivered us wonders and remarkable advances. We must lean into this. There is a future where sustainable ocean tourism drives economies and yet does not harm, where renewable energies, including ocean-based systems, reduce carbon emission and protect vital ecosystems, where circular economies thrive and our production and consumption does not degrade the world around us. We know that science and ingenuity can deliver. As I heard yesterday from women scientists, to ensure we come together to protect the ocean, we should all leave this conference standing with one hand up and the other hand down. One hand up to reach for success, pulling ourselves up and improving in every action we take. The other hand down to pull up others along with us. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, let us not fall prey to short-sightedness or lack of ambition. Let us invest in, trust in, and act upon science. Let us protect the ocean. Let us leverage its power, relish its beauty, cherish its diversity, and ensure its health and longevity. Let us save the ocean. Let us save humanity. Let us save the planet. I thank you.
I thank the President of the General Assembly for his statement, and I now invite His Excellency Colin Vixé Kale Pela, President of the Economic and Social Council, to make his statement.
Excellencies, Presidents of Kenya and Poland, the co-presidents of the conference, President of the United Nations General Assembly, Abdullah Shahid, Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, Honorable Ministers, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. It is a distinct honor for me to participate and deliver some opening remarks at this very historic 2022 United Nations Ocean Conference. At the outset, I commend the governments of Portugal and Kenya for co-hosting this important and timely conference, and the Mayor of Lisbon for welcoming us in this very beautiful coastal marine city. I applaud the co-presidents for ably organizing this conference, and I wish them a successful outcome with tangible, actionable commitments and targets that should perfectly also reinforce the mandate of the United Nations Economic and Social Council, ECOSOC. Excellencies, ECOSOC plays a significant role in monitoring and reviewing implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and in promoting the three dimensions of sustainable development: the economic, social, and environmental. In other words, the Council is the home of all the SDGs. This 2022 United Nations Ocean Conference offers a perfect opportunity to take stock of the implementation of SDG 14 on life below water, dealing with conservation and sustainable use of oceans, seas, and marine resources for sustainable development. This is a critical moment to decisively address the combined impacts of the triple planetary crises of our time: climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution, which have been aggravated by the COVID-19 pandemic. It is urgently imperative that we exert more effort to conserve and sustainably use the oceans, seas, and marine resources for sustainable development. Healthy and well-managed oceans, seas, and marine resources are fundamental to saving our planet and supporting our livelihoods and prosperity for all, as well as the survival of all other species. Our well-being is inextricably linked to the health and sustainable productivity of our oceans, as more than 3 billion people, as alluded by the co-president Uhuru Kenyatta, rely on oceans for their livelihoods. The world's oceans contribute to poverty eradication, sustained economic growth, global trade, and food security. Notwithstanding these benefits, inconsiderate human activities are increasingly undermining the health and productivity of the oceans and our environment, and thus escalating the climate crisis. As highlighted in the recently released report of the Secretary General on progress towards the Sustainable Development Goals, the world's oceans and seas continue to rapidly deteriorate due to increasing acidification, eutrophication, and plastic waste, endangering the planet's largest ecosystem and billions of livelihoods, with small-scale fisher communities the hardest hit. Our own activities in response to the COVID-19 pandemic have also worsened the health of the oceans, with plastic waste having steadily infested the world's oceans as a result of increase in single-use plastic, primarily from medical waste. Excellencies, against this backdrop, I am pleased that we are gathered here today to reflect on ways we can join hands and strengthen conservation and sustainable use of oceans. I am optimistic that inclusive discussions of this nature, involving world leaders and policymakers, scholars, experts, scientists, activists, youth and civil society, and other stakeholders, can contribute to safeguarding oceans' health and chart a new path for their conservation and sustainable use. Above all, the outcomes of this conference will assist in sharing experiences and useful ideas to mobilize oceans action, generate new and much more ambitious commitments, strengthen and forge new partnerships that promote science-based innovative solutions. Your Excellencies, the High-Level Political Forum on Sustainable Development, the HLPF, that I will convene soon after this conference from the 5th to the 15th of July in New York under the auspices of ECOSOC, will undertake an in-depth review of, among others, SDG number 14. This will be the second time that this goal is being reviewed in depth after its initial review in 2017 when the first UN Ocean Conference was held. This conference is therefore very important and timely because it will provide essential inputs to this year's HLPF. The High-Level Political Forum will focus in particular on the interlinkages and synergies between SDG 14 and other goals. As you would be aware, this year's ECOSOC and HLPF theme is Building Back Better from Coronavirus Disease or COVID-19, while advancing the full implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. The review of SDG 14 is also significant given the devastating impact the COVID-19 pandemic has had on oceans-based economies, fisheries, aquaculture, and tourism. The implementation of SDG 14 depends on reimagining the human relationship with the oceans. This, in turn, depends on building oceans awareness through mobilizing public concern, including by fostering ocean literacy and local action. I believe that a more universal concern for oceans' health and the common benefits that can be derived from healthy and productive oceans may also assist to address the existing funding gap for ocean action. I hope that the deliberations at this conference will reinvigorate commitments, partnerships, and action towards SDG 14 and strengthen science policy interface to support sustainable oceans management. In addition, several VNR countries, Your Excellencies, the voluntary national reviews, the VNRs that are presented at the HLPF are an important mechanism for sharing knowledge and peer learning in the implementation of the SDGs. I am encouraged that recent VNRs highlighted the importance of conserving marine ecosystem and biodiversity. I am gratified that this year 44 countries have emphasized the commitment to reducing plastic waste and marine litter and addressing the problem of microplastic. In addition, several VNR countries have noted the need to strengthen institutional capacity in the area of marine science and the blue economy, and the need to protect fisheries resources. As President of ECOSOC, I will continue in the remainder of my tenure to ensure that the Council remains a useful forum and be used for more sustainable future and development. Let me close, co-presidents, by reassuring that the Council remains at your disposal to serve as an inclusive platform in addressing the myriad of challenges we face today and in the future. And I thank you very much for your kind attention.
I thank the President of the Economic and Social Council for his statement, and I now invite Mr. Liu Zianmian, Secretary General of the Conference and the Undersecretary General for Economic and Social Affairs, to make a statement.
Your Excellency, Mr. President of the Portuguese Republic, Your Excellency, Mr. President of the Republic of Kenya, Mr. Secretary General of the United Nations, distinguished heads of state and government, honorable ministers, excellencies, distinguished delegates, distinguished guests, and all stakeholders, ladies and gentlemen. As the Secretary General of the 2022 UN Ocean Conference, I would like to take this opportunity to express my sincere appreciation to the co-hosts of this conference, governments of Portugal and Kenya. They have worked tirelessly and under very difficult circumstances over the past 3 years to make this important conference a reality. I would like to thank the Secretary General Guterres for his inspiring words just delivered at this opening of the conference. It is my hope that we can act on his call to accelerate actions and build new partnerships for ocean health so that together we can learn from each other and promote solutions anchored in science and innovation for a sustainable ocean, as envisaged by the theme of this conference, Scaling Up Ocean Action, based on science and innovation for the implementation of the Goal 14, stock-taking, partnerships, and solutions. I would also like to thank the President of the UN General Assembly and the ECOSOC President for their guidance and support for the preparation of this conference. I would also like to congratulate all delegations for coming to agreement on a concise, action-oriented outcome document for formal adoption at the closing of this conference. I would especially like to thank Her Excellency Ambassador Keisha McCurry, Permanent Representative for Grenada to the United Nations, and His Excellency Ambassador Martin Herman, Permanent Representative of Denmark to the United Nations, for their able stewardship of this important milestone document entitled Our Ocean, Our Future, Our Responsibility. I'm particularly happy to see the focus on science and innovation, the recognition and acknowledgement of the ocean climate biodiversity nexus, and the call for empowerment and full and equal and meaningful participation of women and girls in progressing towards achieving Goal 14. Distinguished delegates, not only are we falling behind in our quest to achieve Goal 14, but we are also still suffering from an uncertainty and the after effects of the global COVID-19 pandemic. We should be confident that while every crisis, the path to recovery provides opportunity. We must take opportunity offered by the COVID-19 recovery to put in place the actions and policies needed for a more sustainable ocean, to build more equitable blue economies that promote the well-being of all people in long term. Therefore, I urge all your delegations to make your commitments and pledges to enrich the registry of voluntary commitments that is managed by UNDESA, the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs. These commitments are key to stemming the declining health of the ocean. Every step counts. Every commitment, however small, matters. We must also take this opportunity to direct support towards marine scientific research, ocean observation and monitoring, including research and monitoring relating to social sciences. Marine scientific research will help us better understand how the ocean supports our lives and livelihoods, and how it might better inform our policies. We must ensure that all countries can benefit from scientific and technological innovations as they rebuild their economies. Ladies and gentlemen, during this conference, we will host 9 plenary meetings and 8 interactive dialogues to address priority topics around SDG 14 targets. The plenary meetings will be devoted to statements by world leaders, ministers, heads of delegations, and major stakeholders. The interactive dialogues are designed to be collaborative and multi-stakeholder in nature. They will focus on recommendations to support the implementation of Goal 14, including through strengthened cooperation, building on existing successful partnerships, and stimulating innovative and concrete new ones, taking into account the theme of this conference. Distinguished delegates, we hope that you come to Lisbon with your vision and commitment, and you will leave Lisbon having made many new friends, widened your knowledge, and formed innovative ideas for new partnerships that can help all of us accelerate progress towards Goal 14. May this conference inspire and re-energize your efforts to protect the health of our ocean for us and for our future generations. Distinguished delegates, before closing, I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to the government and people of Portugal for the warm hospitality extended to all our participants. I would also like to thank all my UN colleagues for their dedication in preparation and support of this conference. I wish this Ocean Conference a great success. I thank you.
I thank the Secretary General of the Conference for his statement. We have now heard the last speaker for the opening segment of this conference, and I now invite the conference to consider item number 3 of the provisional agenda, entitled Adoption of the Rules of Procedure. The conference has before it a note by the Secretariat issued as document A, stroke CONF.2030/2022/2, containing the provisional rules of procedure of the conference. May I take it that the conference agrees to adopt the rules of procedure contained in the document A/CONF.230/2022/2. I hear no objection. It is so decided. The conference has thus concluded its consideration of the agenda item number 3. I now invite the conference to consider item number 4 of the provisional agenda, entitled Adoption of the Agenda of the Conference. Again, I would like to draw the attention of delegations to document A/Conference 230/2022/1, which contains the provisional agenda for the conference. May I take it that the conference wishes to adopt the agenda as contained in document A/CONF.2022/1. I hear no objection. It is so decided. I now invite the conference to consider item number 5 of the agenda entitled Election of Officers Other than the Presidents. Under Rule 6 of the Rules of Procedure, the conference shall elect from among representatives of participating states and on the basis of ensuring the representative character of the General Committee, 13 vice presidents, one of whom shall be designated as the Rapporteur General. With regard to the election of the vice presidents, I have been informed that there is general agreement among delegations to elect the following countries. From among the African states, Angola and Mozambique. From among the Asian Pacific states, the Islamic Republic of Iran, Singapore, and Sri Lanka. From among the Eastern European states, Estonia, Latvia, and Poland. From among the Latin American and Caribbean states, Chile, Dominican Republic, and Peru. And from among the Eastern European and other states, Iceland and Malta. May I take it that the conference wishes to elect Angola, Chile, the Dominican Republic, Estonia, Iceland, the Islamic Republic of Iran, Latvia, Malta, Mozambique, Peru, Poland, Singapore, and Sri Lanka as vice presidents by acclamation. It is so decided. On behalf of the conference, I congratulate the vice presidents on their election. Also under this item, and in a letter dated 24th June 2022, from the permanent representative of Kenya and Sweden to the United Nations in New York, addressed to the President of the General Assembly, that was circulated to all permanent representatives and permanent observers to the United Nations in New York, the Presidents would like to propose that the conference elect 2 ex officio vice presidents from Kenya and Portugal. May I take it that the conference wishes to elect Kenya and Portugal as ex officio vice presidents? It is so decided. I now invite the conference to proceed with the designation of the Rapporteur General of the conference. I have been informed that there is general agreement to designate Her Excellency Maria de Jesus de Reis Ferreira, Permanent Representative of Angola to the United Nations in New York, as Rapporteur General of the conference. May I take it that the conference wishes to proceed accordingly? I hear no objection. It is so decided. On behalf of the conference, I congratulate Her Excellency Maria de Jesus de Reis Ferreira on her designation as Rapporteur General of the conference, and I invite her to take her seat at the podium. Thank you. The conference has thus concluded its consideration of agenda item number 5. I now invite the conference to consider agenda item 6, entitled Organization of Work, including the establishment of subsidiary organs and other organizational matters. The conference has before it a note by the Secretariat entitled Organizational and Procedural Matters, contained in document A/CONF.230/2022/3. May I take it that the conference wishes to approve the organization of work set out in document A/conference.230/2022/3? I hear no objection. It is so decided. In relation to the 8 interactive dialogues, I would like to inform the conference that in accordance with the mandate provided to us by the General Assembly Resolution 73/292, the presidents have appointed the following co-chairs. His Excellency David Parker, Minister of Environment and Minister of Oceans and Fisheries of New Zealand, and Her Excellency Flavian Joubert, Minister of Environment, Energy and Climate Change of the Seychelles, as co-chairs of the Interactive Dialogue on Addressing Marine Pollution. His Excellency Abrao Vincent, Minister of the Sea of Capo Verde, and His Excellency Espen Barth Eide, Minister of Climate and Environment of Norway, and as co-chairs of the Interactive Dialogue on Promoting and Strengthening Sustainable Ocean-Based Economies, in particular for small island developing states and least developed countries. Her Excellency Tanya Pilsberg, Minister of Environment and Water of Australia, and Her Excellency Xiamen Fuertes, Vice President of Foreign Affairs of Chile, as co-chairs of the Interactive Dialogue on Managing, Protecting, Conserving, and Restoring Marine and Coastal Ecosystems. His Excellency John Kerry, Special Envoy for Climate Change of the United States, and His Excellency Matthew Samuda, Minister without portfolio in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation of Jamaica, as co-chairs of the Interactive Dialogue on Ocean Acidification, Deoxygenation, and Ocean Warming. Her Excellency Joyce Murray, Minister of Fisheries, Oceans, and the Canadian Coast Guard of Canada, and His Excellency Derek Clazen, Minister of Fisheries and Marine Resources of Namibia, as co-chairs of the Interactive Dialogue on Making Fisheries Sustainable and Providing Access for Small-Scale Artisanal Fishers to Marine Resources and Markets. Her Excellency Amelia de Montchamp, Minister of Ecological Transition and Territorial Cohesion of France, His Excellency Franz Tachebak, Minister of Environment and Energy of Costa Rica, as co-chairs of the interactive dialogue of increasing scientific knowledge and developing research capacity and transfer of marine technology. Her Excellency Gulu Thursur Desan, Minister of Environment, Energy and Climate of Iceland. His Excellency Vivian Balakrishnan, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Singapore, as co-chairs of the Interactive Dialogue on Enhancing the Conservation and Sustainable Use of Oceans and their Resources by implementing international law as reflected in the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. And His Excellency Brislav Sandov, Deputy Prime Minister for Climate Policies and Minister of Environment and Water of Bulgaria, and His Excellency Molwin Joseph, Minister of Health, Wellness and Environment of Antigua and Barbuda, as co-chairs of the Interactive Dialogue on Leveraging Interlinkages between Sustainable Development, Goal number 14, and other goals towards the implementation of the 2030 Agenda. I would like to express appreciation to the co-chairs for assuming this important role, and by so doing, this conference has concluded this stage of consideration of agenda item number 6. I now invite the conference to consider sub-item A of agenda 7, entitled Appointment of the Members of the Credentials Committee. Rule 4 of the Rules of Procedure provides for a Credentials Committee of 9 members shall be appointed at the beginning of the conference, and its composition shall be based on that of the Credentials Committee of the General Assembly at its 74th session. The following states were members of the Credentials Committee of the 74th session of the General Assembly, and they are Barbados, Botswana, China, Mauritius, Nepal, Russian Federation, San Marino, the United States of America, and Uruguay. I have been informed by the Secretariat that San Marino has indicated that it would not be able to participate in the conference and would accordingly not be available to serve on the Credentials Committee. Therefore, in accordance with the past practice of the Conference of the United Nations, Sweden, from Western Europe and other states, has been nominated to replace San Marino as a member of the Credentials Committee. May I therefore take it that the conference wishes to appoint Barbados, Botswana, China, Mauritius, Nepal, Russian Federation, Sweden, United States of America, and Uruguay as members of the Credential Committee of the conference. I hear no objection. It is so decided. Delegates are reminded that in accordance with the rules of procedure of the conference, credentials issued by the head of state or government or by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, or in the case of the European Union, by the President of the European Council or the President of the European Commission, should be submitted to the Office of Legal Affairs, located in the Fernando Pesa Hall of the conference venue, if they have not already been submitted. The conference has thus concluded its consideration of sub-item A of agenda item number 7. Distinguished heads of state and government, ministers, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the conference shall now commence its general debate under agenda item number 8, and in accordance with the organization of work of the conference contained in document A/Conference 230/2022/3, statements in the general debate shall not exceed 5 minutes. Speakers with longer statements are encouraged to read a shorter version of their text and to submit the full length of their statement to e-statements-oceans@un.org for posting on the Journal of the United Nations. To assist speakers in managing their time, a timer is being projected on the screen. I now have the honor to invite His Excellency João Manuel Gonçalves Lourenço, President of the Republic of Angola, to address the conference on behalf of the community of Portuguese language countries.
Excelência Marcelo.
Your Excellency Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa, President of the Portuguese Republic, Your Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta, President of the Republic of Kenya, Your Excellency Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, Your Excellencies, Presidents, Heads of State and Government, Your Excellency Abdullah Shahid, President of the United Nations General Assembly, Your Excellency Colin Vixen Kelapile, President of the United Nations Economic and Social Council, Honourable Heads of Delegation and International Partners, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is with great pleasure that I participate in the second United Nations Conference on the Oceans, during which we will have ample opportunity to address all aspects connected with this topic and seek to understand how things have progressed since the previous event and what future actions are collectively required in order for us to take care of this common good. This is yet another opportunity to review all we have done to ensure that we meet the goals laid down by the United Nations with a view to reducing marine pollution, protecting marine and coastal ecosystems, decreasing ocean acidification, and putting an end to overfishing and illegal fisheries. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the oceans are not merely an important source of wealth for our countries' economies, the economies of the countries whose shores they bathe. They are also important for the mobility of peoples, for the interaction and integration of different cultures, religions, ways and customs of peoples, and also for trade exchanges among nations. Heads of state and government, representatives of the scientific community, of the private sector and civil society at this very summit will, here in Lisbon, seek to find answers to a growing need to implement new paradigms for sustainable use of the manifold resources that the oceans make available to us, which we must seek to exploit in an increasingly sustainable way, thereby preserving them for future generations. The oceans constitute the planet's largest biosphere. And they are linked to a set of benefits for humanity, which we must needs safeguard so that future generations enjoy a better quality of life. The sad scenario we deal with today requires urgent action from us. We need to find solutions that reverse the current trends of sea and ocean pollution and unregulated exploitation of marine resources. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, at a time when my country is preparing to hold general elections in the upcoming weeks, I nonetheless decided to come to Lisbon to join in the common debate that we will be having here about the oceans, which is a matter of paramount importance for the survival of humanity. The Angolan government has included in its National Development Plan the legal framework required for activities taking place at sea so as to boost the blue economy by strengthening supervision and the regulation of the use of our marine resources. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the Republic of Angola has a relationship with the Atlantic Ocean that requires constant development of initiatives and seeking of solutions that will allow us to protect it and serve also the interests of our neighboring countries. In light of this, we have been developing actions to extend the limits of our exclusive economic zone and have sought to take the necessary steps at the level of the competent UN Commission to legally enshrine this aim, on the basis of which we will then be able to use and protect the resources that line our coast and that have been the subject and that have seen great depletion by unlicensed foreign fishing fleets. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is not possible today to talk about the need to preserve and better use our marine resources without talking also about the need to protect the environment as a whole. Of course, the degradation of the environment is negatively reflected in our seas and oceans. Global warming is responsible for the melting of the glacial ice caps and has led to a frightening increase in the level of the sea, endangering cities and other settlements along our coastlines worldwide. Global warming, which has led to a rise in the average temperature of ocean waters, is also responsible for a significant increase in the number of cyclones, hurricanes, and tsunamis in the Atlantic, Indian, and Pacific Oceans. These are becoming increasingly frequent and ever more devastating and have caused a high number of victims and considerable material damage on practically all continents. It is our responsibility to take every possible measure to reduce, to the extent possible, the emission of greenhouse gases and protect the ozone layer, thereby protecting the planet also. Angola has taken significant steps in recent years to reduce the flaring of fossil fuels for production of electricity. We privilege the production and transport of energy from hydroelectric sources throughout the country and are committed to ambitious projects for the production of photovoltaic energy in the center, south, and east of our country. The first photovoltaic parks will be inaugurated and their energy injected into the national grid this very month of July. Following the signing a few days ago of an important contract with a German company, we have started to take the first steps in the production of green hydrogen for export from 2024 onwards. In Angola, a great effort has been made to train capable staff that will help the country respond with the required effectiveness and efficiency, two issues connected with the main concerns around the oceans. We have therefore partnered up with the EU under the Africa Rise program with a view to addressing the issue of worsening marine pollution, in particular from urban solid waste, plastic, of course, being the biggest problem of all. We have also been paying close attention to wetlands, which are part and parcel of marine and coastal ecosystems. This means protecting and conserving these areas through reforestation and mangrove conservation, with particular emphasis on a campaign which over a period of 8 months led to the planting of 1 million mangroves throughout the Angolan coast. This was possible thanks to the active participation of Angolan civil society, in particular young people who are dedicated to environmental causes. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we are certain that we will not be able to achieve the goals required to protect our marine ecosystem if we do not courageously strengthen the maritime defense and security capacity strongly threatened by groups of modern sea pirates engaged in terrorist activities along major sea routes who seriously threaten international trade and security. In this regard, I would like to highlight in particular the problems in the Gulf of Guinea, in the Horn of Africa, and in other areas of our planet, where piracy constitutes a serious threat to the use of the seas for peaceful purposes, such as trade, tourism, and other activities that are connected to these, that are the engines of our economies. I consider that it is necessary to expand international cooperation with the countries in these regions so that they have the requisite capacity to deal with this global threat. The importance of the oceans in ensuring the smooth flow of goods, their impact on world trade and on the stabilization of prices of raw materials and essential goods, as well as on the normal functioning of the global economy, is becoming increasingly apparent. It is therefore of crucial importance and also imperative that we make sure our oceans are used in a peaceful manner so as to guarantee the survival of humanity in acceptable conditions for all populations on the planet. Our ocean, seas, and land infrastructures, commercial ports are so very important for our economies and for the well-beings of citizens throughout the world that the blockade of the Ukrainian Black Sea ports is causing a global food crisis and leading to shortages of cereals, fertilizers, and oilseed for the production of cooking oil. In this regard, it is fundamental that the European Union, the United Nations, and in general the entire international community prioritize and focus their main efforts on finding an immediate and unconditional solution, a ceasefire, followed by negotiations with the parties that are concerned, thereby achieving and building a truly lasting peace for Europe and the rest of the world. At this moment in time, when we are still dealing with the tension in Southeast Asia, the Korean Peninsula, and the Persian Gulf, tension with the potential to evolve into a nuclear confrontation, the world can no longer envisage a new conflict breaking out at the very heart of Europe, for it might have significant consequences for the global economy and above all for world peace and security. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I have to also tell you about the great effort in terms of cooperation that CPLP member states have been engaged in. They are committed to and interested in discussing all ocean-related issues. And of course, this makes sense given the fact that we are all coastal countries, some of us island nations. In this context, I would like to highlight some very commendable initiatives that have taken place, such as the Blue Talks, a platform for very fruitful debates that have taken place in the weeks leading up to this conference. CPLP attaches great importance to its oceans, which the Namib Declaration clearly indicates. The Namib Declaration was adopted in the Angolan province that shares this name. It's an important legal document that has been widely discussed among all member states and seeks to establish a platform for cooperation in the promotion of sustainable fisheries and combating illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing among member states of the CPLP. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to seize this opportunity to thank His Excellency Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa, President of the Portuguese Republic, and His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta, President of the Republic of Kenya, for this very important initiative, the holding of this conference, and for the excellent working arrangements and marvelous accommodation accorded to all participating delegations. I would also like to thank the Portuguese authorities and this very hospitable people for the warm welcome extended to us. Thank you all very much for your attention.
I thank the President of the Republic of Angola. I now would invite His Excellency Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa to take over the proceedings of the meeting. Your Excellency.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I now have the honor to invite His Excellency Surengel Whips, President of the Republic of Palau, to address the conference on behalf of the Pacific Small Island Developing States and also for a national statement.
Presidents, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, I am honored to speak on behalf of the Pacific Small Island Developing States. I extend our congratulations to the presidents on their assumption of the presidency of this second UN Ocean Conference and assure you our full support. Allow me to present this shortened version of the Pcit Statement. We are alarmed by the multiple dire crises facing our ocean, from the ever-rising temperature to the other anthropogenic stressors that continue to threaten its health, and international efforts at all levels are desperately needed now to improve and sustain the health, productivity, and resilience of our ocean. Plastic pollution is of serious concern. The Pacific contributes less than 1.3% of the mismanaged plastic pollution, yet we are grossly and disproportionately affected by its impacts. Based on current projections, there will be more plastics in the ocean than fish by 2050. We welcome the decision to convene an intergovernmental negotiating committee to develop an internationally legally binding instrument on plastic pollution that includes marine environment, which must address the role played by all stakeholders at all stages of the plastic life cycle. Our concerns over climate change and its effects on the ocean extend to the preservation of our maritime zones. The rights and the entitlements that flow from our territorial boundaries must be preserved without reduction, even in the face of rising sea levels. The Pacific SIDS position, reflecting the Declaration on Preserving Maritime Zones in the face of climate change-related sea level rise, is that preserving maritime zones and the rights and entitlements that flow from them brings much-needed equity and stability and gives expression to the core principles of international law and human rights and the notions of climate justice deeply rooted in human rights and international law. As a global industry, international shipping is responsible for 3% of global greenhouse gas emissions. A holistic regional approach would increase the sustainability of Pacific shipping, given the rather slow global response in addressing this issue. Sustainable shipping is reliant on safe and clean ships, which are the responsibility of the vessel owners. We hope that the UN Decade for Ocean Science for Sustainable Development will generate the global ocean science needed to support the sustainable development of our shared ocean. We continue to emphasize the vital role of traditional knowledge of indigenous peoples and local communities in the connection and understanding of managing the ocean, including the implementation of the decade, such as traditional knowledge being a complement to science. The 7-hour Ocean Conference held in Palau in April of this year was an immense success in addressing the gaps and the challenges and the full potential the ocean has to offer, including ocean-based economies. We look forward to the pledges and commitments coming on stream sooner rather than later. Mr. President, of all the SDGs, SDG 14 is by far the least funded, representing only 0.1% of SDG funding. Less than 2% of the Green Climate Fund and only 0.7% of the Global Environmental Facility. We must attract and retain sustainable and responsible public and private investment, including foreign direct investment, through blending guarantees and other innovative financial instruments, paying particular attention to women and youth. Credit support for tourism businesses and social protection for tourism workers and additional levers that could help SIDS recover faster from the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. Overfishing, IUU, remains a huge concern for the Pacific SIDS economies, and so is harmful fishing subsidies. As acidification, the ocean is destroying entire reef systems and fish populations and remains a critical concern to the threat of fisheries, which are the lifeblood of our Pacific communities. Mr. President, let me conclude by briefly speaking about the importance of preserving marine ecosystems, biodiversity within and beyond national jurisdiction. Ecosystems such as mangroves, seagrass, coral reefs are essential but are under threat. Preserving marine ecosystems has multiple benefits relating to climate change, food security, and resilience to coastal erosion. Pcit supports the adoption of a strong international legally binding instrument on the conservation of sustainable use of marine biodiversity in areas beyond jurisdiction, which allows for holistic planning and management of the ocean and its biodiversity. We must accept the need for transformative change aimed at halting and reversing the decline of the health of our ocean ecosystems and biodiversity, and protecting and restoring its resilience and ecological integrity. Now allow me to share what is happening in our small nation of Palau and what we are taking action on. As a child, I would play on the reef and spearfish with my father and to provide food and income to our family. As a teen, I traveled by fishing boat with my father to a remote island in Palau. The island was teeming with life, birds, fish, and giant clams. 2 years ago, I was able to go back to this island with my own children and witness the magic of turtles laying their eggs and learn, tragically, that the turtle nesting beaches had eroded due to sea level rise, and half the eggs that were laid that night would not survive because they were laid in the tidal zone. This was heartbreaking, but is the reality we all face. The fate of the turtles is the same as the fate of our homes, our culture, and all that sustains us. I was fortunate to be able to share this experience with my children, as I did with my father. But what about our children? My actions and decisions as president of Palau are rooted in my hope as a father to pass on to my daughter, Moded, who is here with me today, a productive ocean, just as my father did to me. We must take bold initiative actions. We can no longer be held hostage to fossil fuels. This year, Palau is committing to generating 100% of its energy from renewable sources by 2032. This is a monumental undertaking for a small island country and will require the support from other governments and the NGO community through the development of both innovative technologies and technical capacity. Palau has also launched a comprehensive Blue Prosperity Plan. The plan includes the development of sustainable fisheries, restorative aquaculture, high-value ecotourism, and innovative business models, all designed to deliver the optimal economic benefits while protecting Palau's ecological resources. Our Blue Prosperity Plan for 100% sustainably managed ocean, its foundation is a participatory, inclusive, and science-based marine spatial planning process that aims to balance production with protection of our ocean fisheries. To implement this plan over the next several years, we will work with our partners to better understand the vital habitats in our waters worthy of high-level protection, while also working to identify key spawning grounds and migratory routes for our valuable fish stocks. All of this will help us design a conservation framework that optimizes benefits to conservation, food security, and local livelihoods. Building on the Palau National Marine Sanctuary, created in 2015, we commit to growing regional cooperation for 100% management of the Pacific Ocean as we move collectively toward the global ambition of 30 by 30. Palau has taken bold steps to protect our ocean. However, we cannot do it alone. We must all act together. We need all humanity, including the 23 million in Taiwan, to be part of the solution. The shirt that I'm wearing today is an example of innovative solutions addressing pollution. It was made from recycled plastic bottles collected in Palau and turned into this beautiful shirt in Taiwan. We need to look beyond our differences, work towards a common ocean, our common ocean challenges, and stop using our ocean as a garbage dump. I would like to end with a Palauan legend about a fisherman from the village of Ngaramay in Palau. One day, he went fishing on his canoe. He came upon a large turtle and hastily jumped in the water after it. Surfacing from beneath, he realized his canoe wasn't anchored and was drifting away. He then looked at the turtle, and it was swimming away. He could not decide which one he should pursue. In doing so, he lost both the canoe and the turtle. We can no longer afford to be indecisive. We must make commitments. We must be adaptive. We can no longer afford to just talk. We need action. We need all nations to work towards a 100% sustainably managed ocean, protecting a minimum of 30% of the global biodiversity by 2030, ensuring the conservation and the sustainable use of our oceans, seas, and marine resources for sustainable development is our collective responsibility. We must do it for our children and the generations to come. Thank you.
I thank the President of the Republic of Palau. I now have the honor to invite His Excellency Ivan Duque Marques, President of the Republic of Colombia, to address the conference.
Señor Secretario.
Mr. Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, great friend. And I'd also like to extend my greetings to our great friend, the President of Portugal, Marcelo Nuno Duarte Rebelo de Sousa, and His Excellency, the President of Kenya, Uhuru Kenyatta, and Abdullah Sahid, President of the General Assembly of the United Nations. And I'd also like to extend greetings to Cullen Bixen Vitali, heads of state, and distinguished heads of delegation. It is an honor for me to be here today at this important summit, a summit which brings us together to address the situation of oceans. It's highly relevant because the climate crisis that we're experiencing today is hitting many nations, be it due to coastal erosion, or be it due to the increase in sea levels, or the increase in temperatures of the seas and oceans, which is increasingly frequent, and therefore we have devastating hurricanes as a result. Addressing the climate crisis requires all of our action to effectively protect the oceans. And I come here as the President of Colombia, the country with the second highest amount of biodiversity on the planet, one of the 5 nations with the greatest maritime biodiversity, with more than 3,500 kilometers of coastline, and a nation which only accounts for 0.6% of global emissions of greenhouse gases. But we are one of the nations that's most impacted by the climate crisis, and we come here today as the only country in South America which has a coast on both oceans. We are one of the 21 countries but with 2 oceans, only one of 21 on the planet. And that is why it is our commitment to fulfill the Sustainable Development Goal number 14, and we do so with a clear awareness of having ambitious and bold goals, but achievable goals. At the last summit, COP26 in Glasgow, we committed to be a carbon neutral country by 2050. In reducing our greenhouse gas emissions by 50%, the goal is 2030 to do so by then. In achieving these goals, it means that the Congress of Colombia unanimously approved a climate action law. And in that same law on climate action, we proposed to ourselves that our country would increase, both with determination and ambition, increase the protected areas. Clearly, one of the most important objectives that we've set for ourselves is reflected in what's known as the Declaration of Global Leaders for Nature. There we stated that for by the year 2030, 30% of our territory would be declared as a protected area. Dear heads of state and delegation, let us not wait for 2030. We will not do so. We said we would reach 30% of protected areas, marine and land-based areas. And just a few days ago, we managed to get the members of the Science Academy of our country, many of whom are with us today, to approve 4 new areas of protected lands. And that means that Colombia, in the coming days, will be actually bringing about that goal that 30% of maritime areas are part of the protected areas and our heritage. That means, Mr. Secretary General, that we are increasing to 16 million hectares maritime protected areas for Colombia. That doubles the amount of current protected areas. But moreover, heads of state and delegation, 9 million of those hectares will be no-take hectares. That is significant progress in conservation. First and foremost, this is a historical moment because Colombia is one of the first countries, if not the first, to achieve that goal of 30% of maritime protected areas. But that doesn't mean that that's the only thing we're doing. We have other political instruments at hand. One of those that we are currently restoring 1 million coral reefs in our territory, and we do so because historically, and especially the coral reefs, are a natural barrier to protect from the winds of the hurricanes. And those coral reefs are also a place of life, where there's birth and growth of a large part of maritime life. We're also pleased to say that we've taken another momentous step, and that is that today we have blue carbon programs to protect the mangroves, where we bring the resources to protect the biotope, to have a bay known as the Gulf of Morrosquillo that will become a reference, a benchmark for the whole Western Hemisphere for this type of program. But we've taken those decisions which are relevant from our own national level, but we have also joined the establishment of a marine protected area that's the largest on the planet in partnership with other countries. We did it with Ecuador, which expanded that beautiful area of Galapagos to protect it. We did it ourselves, protected the Malpelo area as a protected area, Luparin. And we also worked with Panama, with the Cohiba Reserve, and we worked with Costiva with the Cocos preservation. This is the brotherhood area, Hermandad. It's not just beautiful because it's huge, but it's also because we were able to mobilize philanthropic resources globally. And this is also with contributions from many that exceeds more than $150 million. This is an example of what's possible working together and with a significant mobilization of resources. We also are celebrating these relevant steps, but also this same week, we were able to achieve the following. We were able to close a program called Colombia Inheritance with more than $160 million of world philanthropy and a contribution from the Colombian government to match so that the protected areas would bring with it resources in order to bring about future conservation efforts. All of this is an example of our country's determination, and that is why we have also joined the cause to be able to quickly bring about all single-use plastic be recyclable and compostable so that we can protect marine life. Our public policies today are harmonized with what we call the green taxonomy. Just a few months ago, we launched this on international markets. It makes it possible to have a whole list of environmental actions and make them an effective vehicle for issuance of green bonds, and also to have absolute clarity that conservation policies need to also be an effective vehicle to bring resources through the markets to these communities, communities that want to integrate into the global community with solutions that enable that. Dear heads of state and delegation, I'd like to close my remarks not just with this important historical statement made by Colombia today, but also with an appeal. Fishing, illegal fishing of overstocks, is causing irreversible damage. This fishing is equivalent of deforestation of the oceans because large-scale fishing destroys the coral reefs and it decreases CO2, which is only comparable to aviation industry's emissions of CO2 per year. But also in destroying the coral reefs, we're also putting at risk on a global level the place where 45% of all maritime life lives. Today, we need to take ownership and understand that protecting marine areas is to stop the destruction, but also to show fisheries and nations, communities, that we can give them additional sources of income. If we take this path, if we increase the protected areas, not waiting until 2030 to do so, do it before, and find justification and the reasoning and arguing and the financing for the fishers, for those who are involved in fishing, and help the effort of conservation for those protected areas. And in that way, we will achieve Sustainable Development Objective 14. I say goodbye by ratifying this undeniable commitment. Today, based on scientific reasoning, go hand in hand with the Scientific Academy of our country, and in a special day, which will be tomorrow, Colombia is closing our participation and will continue with its commitment to the oceans as the first country of the Western Hemisphere to decree 30% of its marine areas as conserved and protected areas. Thank you very much, and let's keep moving forward. Let's contribute with effective solutions. Thank you.
I thank the President of the Republic of Colombia. I now have the honor to invite His Excellency Mohamed Yunis Menfi, President of the Presidential Council of the State of Libya, to address the conference.
فخامة الرئيس مارسيل.
Your Excellency, Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa, President of the Portuguese Republic. Your Excellency, Uhuru Kenyatta, President of the Republic of Kenya. Your Excellency, Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations. Your Excellency, Mr. Abdullah Shahid, President of the United Nations General Assembly. Since humanity was created on Earth, man was part of the global ecosystem. Man's needs were limited to the available production and consumption means. These did not threaten Earth's ecosystem for thousands of years. However, with the Renaissance and the Industrial Revolution and the new economic model based on large-scale economies, large production, mass production, the use of pesticides, fossil fuel for mass production, this depleted our natural resources at record levels. Ladies and gentlemen, Over 2/3 of our planet is marine resources. It is our most important resource. The first UN agreement or convention reached by the international community was delayed by 3 decades. Furthermore, the gaps that we started witnessing recently in this convention is threatening and jeopardizing any progress, and it's leading to more endangerment of our natural resources. Libya has the longest coast along the Mediterranean Sea, 1,770 kilometers. This coastal line hosts 90% of the population of Libya. Libya is also relying on marine economy as a state that is economically open by 90%. Libya will be one of the states that will be truly affected by the rise of sea levels. Therefore, not to mention, rather, that in Libya, we are witnessing a lot of ecosystem damage as a result of the security situation in my country. Furthermore, our beaches are polluted. They're used for human smuggling and for smuggling weapons inside our borders. I call on all countries, especially those concerned with the Libyan situation, to play a more important role so that my country can meet its obligations towards the environment and towards our seas. We cannot argue the facts. The threats are now evident. We are nearing the point of no return. We need to preserve our blue planet. It should be our priority. And we should all work on making sure that our planet is protected. And this was stressed in the Paris Climate Change Agreement. I would like to quote the Quran. Corruption has spread on land and sea as a result of what people's hands have done, so that Allah may cause them to understand the consequences of their deeds. Thank you.
I thank the President of the Presidential Council of the State of Libya. Tenho a honra de convidar Sua Excelência Umar.
And it is now my honor to invite His Excellency Umaru Sissoco Embalo, the President of the Republic of Guinea-Bissau, to address the conference.
Senhor Presidente da Conferência.
Chairman of the UN conference to support and defend GDS 14, Your Excellencies, heads of state and government, my dear friend, Secretary General of the United Nations, distinguished representatives of the specialized agencies of the United Nations system, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to start by congratulating the United Nations for the initiative that led to holding this second ocean conference, whose global and truly strategic reach for the future and mankind brooks no disputes. Allow me to pay particular tribute to the governments of Portugal and Kenya, co-organizing countries of this major event, for the remarkable quality that they were able to imprint on this global UN forum. I'm certain that as a result of the quality of their efforts and as a result of its ambitious scientific and technological agenda, in both cultural, economic and social terms, this second Ocean Conference will constitute a new paradigm. And this new paradigm will, I'm sure, result in fostering innovative solutions to one of the major challenges facing mankind, namely to use and sustainably conserve the oceans, the seas, marine resources, in order for sustainable development. Let nobody doubt what the oceans stand for, inasmuch as they are the #1 ecosystem on the planet. Therefore, we all know that no sustainable development is conceivable if it does not encompass the crucial role played by oceans therein. It is precisely due to this fact that the motto "Save the Oceans, Protect the Future" fits beautifully and is an imperative that cannot but loom large on the horizon. Ladies and gentlemen, because of its geography, my country, Guinea-Bissau, partly continental and partly insular, with an archipelago counting more than 80 islands, which means that we are sitting on major potential when it comes to fisheries, tourism, a multifaceted blue economy in a nutshell. In other words, an economic model which is consistent, which dovetails with the requirements of sustainable development. However, my country is not an ecological oasis, I'm sorry to say. In other words, we also share the same issues, the same challenges that, for better or worse, other countries face, which share features similar to those Guinea-Bissau faces. I will, of course, not list for you an inventory of problems we face. Suffice it to say that we're not alien to climate change. The increase in coastal erosion means that we are very much exposed to the climate incidents that come with our geography. Therefore, we attach the greatest possible importance to the implementation of the Paris Agreement, and we are developing our very best efforts in building an economy that will be river-friendly, ocean-friendly in and around our country. With a view to supporting our government in so doing, we have an institute dealing with biodiversity and protected areas with an NGO status. A particularly active one. Our greatest hope resides in our youth, in our growing environmental awareness, because the future does, of course, belong to the younger ones amongst us. We have benefited a great deal from very relevant partners, namely the ever-present United Nations Agency, European Union, and several friendly countries on a bilateral basis. Thank you very much.
Eu agradeço ao Sr. Presidente da República de Guiné-Bissau.
Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, President, Republic of Ghana, to address the conference.
co-chairs, UN Secretary General, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I thank the United Nations Secretary General, His Excellency Antonio Guterres, for the invitation to Ghana and her president to be part of this important summit, which is being co-chaired by the President of the Portuguese Republic, His Excellency Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa, and the President of the Republic of Kenya, His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta. I congratulate both of them on their election and express Ghana's gratitude to the Portuguese government for the high quality of its hospitality here in Lisbon. Ghana is a coastal nation on the Atlantic in West Africa with extensive marine resources which generate direct livelihoods for a fishing community of some 2 million people and an overall population of 31 million people. Excellencies, the ocean has historically been a dependable provider of resources for the world and its people. It is the source of food and nutrition for more than 3 billion of the world's population, and it acts as the lungs of the planet, producing 50% of the world's oxygen and absorbing some 25% of carbon dioxide emissions that result from human activity. In addition, the ocean provides support for the world's economy to the tune of